Hi, and welcome to SAP Tech Ed. Welcome back to Channel 1 if you already joined for the keynote or some of the sessions before. I am Cecily Sorensen, and I am joined here today by my colleague Konstantin Heine. And we want to welcome you to our session, Start Your Journey with SAP BTP and Confidently Accelerate Adoption.
Yeah, very big topic, right? But let me ask you one question first. Do you like classical music?
If I'm trying to fall asleep, which hopefully we're not trying to do today.
Oh, we shouldn't fall asleep during the session. But can you imagine what classical music and the pictures and our topic have to do with each other?
That's a good question. Coming from my background, I could imagine that it has something to do with the several SAP BTP services, for example, and maybe you're trying to create some type of music together in an orchestra.
It's close, very close. So when you look at the pictures, you can see that building an instrument, for example, is an art, right? You start with wood, and then you have to apply some techniques to really do this instrument, create the instrument. Then at one point in time, hopefully, you have a violin that sounds very nice. And if you combine it with other instruments, you're really playing in an orchestra. And the interesting thing is, when I looked at our portfolio graphic, it almost looks like an orchestra, right? So if you look here, you have probably one conductor, you have the strings, you have other instruments in the orchestra. And it's all about orchestrating different things, like the services you just mentioned. And if you look at this picture here, you will see that there are a lot of different capabilities inside BTP. You have a lot of different solutions, applications, but also services. And it's all about really orchestrating this. Now, you're probably not a conductor, right?
No. Not yet.
But a BTP service conductor and orchestrator.
Yeah,
so this is a challenge for customers and partners, and to be honest, also for some colleagues, because we have so many different services. And this is why 1 year ago, we thought about how can we actually simplify this? How can we allow customers and partners to orchestrate services, find the right way to make it really sound like a symphony in the end? And if you've watched Tech Ed last year, Tech Ed Virtual, you've probably also seen the announcement of the SAP BTP Guidance Framework that you launched almost 1 year ago. So the SAP BTP Guidance Framework is your central point for guidance related to BTP. But we do not focus on musicians, so we focus on 3 main personas, namely the architects, developers, and administrators. And we really try to provide guidance content that allow you to build your own symphony, so to speak, so your applications on BTP. And very important, the content that is part of the guidance framework is not only available only for the different personas, but we have shared content inside. And you probably also spotted already that there's a layer underneath that covers, for example, best practices or learning and enablement in the community. So there's also content included that is available for all the different personas. So I suggest let's have a closer look at the guidance framework. And here we see the different content categories, as we call them. So we have so-called decision guides that really allow you to find your way through different topics, like, for example, the extensibility architecture, but also integration architecture. We have reference architectures. We also launched them last year in SAP Discovery Center. And sneak peek, we will also talk about this later. We have recommendations, for example, in the area of security, our methodologies, and DevOps principles.
But also under learning and enablement, we also have the learning journeys, right? So
exactly.
Several of them were just recently released.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a good point, because today we will not go through the guidance framework in detail. We have a link in the end where you can also find it. And by the way, if you're on the event platform and you click the next steps button, you will directly get to the guidance framework. Today we will focus a little bit more on the news that we have to share. So how the guidance framework evolved in the last year.
Yeah.
But before we come to that, maybe just to give you an impression what is included here. So we have different guides, for example, the Integration Architecture Guide, the Extension Architecture Guide, but also the SAP BTP Developers Guide. That's your golden path, so to speak, to develop applications on BTP. We also have different methodologies. I think the oldest one, so the most mature one, the SAP Integration Solution Advisory Methodology, ISAM, and also our extension methodology and the data and analytics methodology. So can you imagine what evolved over the last year? Reference architectures was one topic. How many things do you think evolved over the last year?
Oh, several. 3 to 5.
A lot. It was we had a hard time really to select a couple of these items for the session. So we will focus on 4 updates that we have. And we also thought a little bit about you, the audience. What is useful for you? What is helpful for you, especially in the area you mentioned already, learning and enablement. And the first update we would like to give you is that now a SAP BTP Solution Architect learning journey is available. So it's called Becoming an SAP BTP Solution Architect. And if you follow the QR code, you will directly get to our learning page and get to this learning journey. And to be honest, it was a little bit a challenge to identify what are actually skills and competencies a solution architect for BTP needs. Because sometimes you could simply say, well, if you're very familiar or confident with Integration Suite or SAP Build, you're an architect in the end. But we also looked a little bit from a different angle, and we also included some methodology knowledge. So really skills that are also useful behind the hard skills that are related to our applications. So this really equips you with technical skills, but also methodology skills, and it leads to a certification. So you can become a certified BTP solution architect.
Excellent. Definitely worth checking out. And the learning journeys are really well structured and nice to go through in detail.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
And there's a new one, and it's so new that we couldn't bring it into the presentation yet. It's the operations learning journey for BTP. So this one here focuses on architects, but if you're an administrator, for example, or you would like to know more about operations, we just launched 2 weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks ago, the operations learning journey for BTP. And Niklas Siemer and Christian Loos in the XP105 session tomorrow will also talk about this in a little bit more detail. But also from there, you find this operations learning journey. Now, the other update we have is related to the SAP BTP Developers Guide. Also last year, we launched it during TechEd 2023. And the SAP BTP Developers Guide is really your central place to get guidance and information on how to build applications on BTP. So it's really focusing on stability, compliance. It includes key factors to keep in mind when building applications. And it evolved over time. So I think we spent a lot of time in bringing in new content. Also, thanks for your feedback. We also used the comment functionality a lot, and this got improved. So now you will also find patterns here, also additional enhancements. So if you're really interested in this, there are a couple of sessions available also in this year's TechEd, but the SAP BTP Developers Guide is really the place to go to for building applications on BTP. Then I always call it the most hidden secret because it has always been, the hidden gem. It has always been there. It's called the Best Practices Guide for SAP BTP. The Best Practices Guide is an asset that is really used if you want to know more about how to best operate BTP, how to keep, for example, a governance model in place for BTP, but also how to structure accounts in here. And what we are currently doing, and this is also very, very new, we evolved this guide into kind of a BTP administrator's guide. So similar what we have for the developers guide is something we will soon have for the administrators to somehow pull a little bit the best practices and the guidance apart, so to really have a clear distinction between these two areas. So if you really want to know more about how to best operate BTP, how to manage, for example, transports, this is really your place to go to get information on best practices. And then we have the so-called Solution Diagram Design Repository. Last year, again at TechEd, we launched the SAP BTP reference architectures, and the reference architectures are very comprehensive, like building maps for services. And we also got feedback in the meantime that, of course, customers and partners want to build their own architectures. And of course, you could start now from scratch, opening a PowerPoint slide and just draw it with the tools. But we took this a little bit further. So on the one hand side, we really looked into design guidelines. You can see here it already is compliant to our Horizon theme. And we also included guidelines that are really used now to build compliant and similar diagrams on your own. And they will then, in the end, look like our official reference architectures. The second thing is we also included the stencils. So there are different tools available. You will also show this in a second.
Yeah, we'll show this in just a little bit, so stay tuned for sure.
And most important, the most commonly used enterprise architecture tool in the world, PowerPoint.
Yeah, of course.
So we offer a PowerPoint download of stencils, but we also support different tools, and you will then show one of them. So if you really want to build your own diagrams, if you want to document certain things, this is the place to go to get the guidelines and find everything you need for the different diagrams. Now, talking about diagrams, I already mentioned the reference architectures, and the solution diagrams is part of the reference architectures. And I think you also have some exciting news to share.
I do. So let's take a look. So thank you, Konstantin, for providing some framework about what the guidance framework is, what is the developer's guide, what are the different assets and content that are available from a guidance perspective, because you've heard a lot today about new innovations, new releases. Maybe you're just learning about SAP BTP for the first time today. So thank you for kind of providing the background there. So let's dive in, though, on what this actually looks like and how you can get started. So as Konstantin mentioned, we have reference architecture. So I have now navigated into the SAP Discovery Center, and I am in the architecture catalog. So here you can find a collection of SAP Expert approved and SAP curated reference architectures. I will just access one for us here because there's a really nice feature related to the designs that we were just talking about as well.
That's
so here,
very lean diagram. So at least we can spend a lot of time looking at the diagram.
yeah, of course. So there's a lot going on, but what's nice is that if I close this now, if you go down and scroll down below, it'll show you a description of the reference architecture and also the various flows. So for example, for number 2, that in this particular instance, you would need to have separate sub-accounts in order to not have any downtime, or if something happens, kind of disaster recovery, so to speak, you would need sub-accounts in 2 different locations.
Do I see somewhere where the services are listed here?
You do. So below we'll have individual characteristics and then also examples of content, and services and components are listed as well, and also a link to the estimator, which I'll show you in more detail in just a second as well. But what I wanted to also highlight here is you can scroll up to the top, and there's a really nice function for download. So we have 2. There's draw.io or the image directly. And I have draw.io already installed on my system, but if you don't, you can, of course, always use the web version. And here inside of draw.io, what's nice is that you can immediately start editing the diagram to fit your system landscape. So we know we can provide these general best practices and guidance, but we know you're coming from an individual business with individual business needs. So definitely something to check out and a really nice feature as well.
Yeah, and if you don't know what, for example, dotted lines mean or solid lines or arrows mean, this is exactly where the document, the guidelines come into place. So what I mentioned earlier, because in the guideline document, you really get explanations what the elements of a diagram mean in the end.
Yeah, exactly. And like we said, all of the stencils and everything like that are available directly in draw.io. So what if you're brand new to Discovery Center? So what if I just showed you the architecture catalog and you're like, whoa, where are we? Let's start from scratch. So you probably heard in the keynote, if you listened, that we had a new SAP Business AI feature catalog. I will dive into that in just a second. But for brand new people to the Discovery Center, I would recommend that you check out the new infographic. So this was released just a couple of days ago, and it's a really nice place to get started. Even if you're coming back to the website, maybe you know that certain assets are available or certain content is there, but you don't know everything. Definitely come here. If you expand, you can see an additional text that also describes it as well. So something to check out later after the session. So we already saw the reference architecture catalog. So let's dive into what else is here. So let's go now into the service catalog. So this is a collection of all of the SAP BTP services that are available. You can search by the name of this service, commercial model, what data centers is it available in, things like that. But let's see one particular service. So I'm going to open up SAP Business Application Studio. I'll be given a description of the service. So what is it all about? On the right-hand side, you'll find some nice resources that we've collated that lead to additional resources that are valuable. Also, initial setup is a really nice one because that shows you an initial setup guide on how you can actually activate the service for the first time. Pricing is available, so this also takes you into the BTP service estimator, which will give you an estimate of the costs. Related missions. Missions we'll also dive into in more detail, but this would be use cases that are leveraging this service. Roadmap is really nice to see because now you won't have to go into another window, open up the Roadmap Explorer, find the related roadmap. You can just find the upcoming innovations directly here for this particular service. So that's our BTP service catalog. As we mentioned in the keynote and brand new in the last couple of days is the new SAP Business AI feature catalog. So great news. If you're interested in learning more about what are the AI features that are available from SAP, this is the place to start. Again, logistically, it's laid out exactly the same as the BTP service catalog. And let's go ahead and also open one of those so you can take a look. I will go for the featured one, cost structure creation. Here again, you see a brief description of what the AI feature is all about, the benefits, the business value, and again, a nice selection of collated materials for related resources as well.
It's really business AI, right? So it's not only BTP specific, because I saw Ariba, I also saw CRM there, so it's really also sorted by LOBs. So
exactly. And that's what's really nice is that this has now expanded the SAP Discovery Center before, because it was kind of always known as the central entry point for BTP, and now it's expanding its horizons and providing even more resources. Mm-hmm. And below here, you'll also see pricing for the service. So that's going to now go into price and value and AI units and things like that with a link to the AI feature estimator. So I had mentioned earlier that there's the BTP service estimator, but we now also have the AI feature estimator. And what's different about this is it doesn't just provide estimates of the costs, it also provides projected values. So based on industry best practices, you'll also be given insights into what the projected value is for your company. So all you need to do is edit the basic parameters. So I already have some in here. I've done the high-tech industry, 3 million in revenue with 100 employees. And now I'm already seeing a cost estimate for the AI units, net savings, and total cost. So lots to access, lots of very helpful information. I know we're running through it really quick, but let's now go into the last step here, which is really what I would consider to be the heart of the Discovery Center, because it brings all of these individual catalogs together in a really nice structure, and that is our mission catalog. You're probably wondering what a mission is if you haven't heard that term before. So this is a collection of SAP BTP use cases. And the reason why we aren't just calling them use cases is because they've been expanded to also include guidance implementation. So that's really what I would want you to take from this session also, is that Discovery Center provides 3 different things. It provides information about what's available, so services or AI features, how they can be used, so that's the use cases, so how they can be used together to solve particular business challenges, and also those cost estimations. So it's really a nice combo of technology and business in terms of what's available and also the cost. And then what we'll do is let's go into one particular mission. So I'm going to open up one mission and just quickly walk through what's available is here. So this shows you a breakdown of what the use case is all about. So it's going to describe the business challenge, what is the outcome, what is the solution. You'll also see an image of the solution diagram here. So this is unlike the reference architectures where it's a really large, broad, general guidance. This is a specific solution diagram for this particular use case. At the bottom, you'll find the individual services that are related that are required for this service. Also, again, another link to the estimator for this use case in particular. So this is where we get into the guidance part. So I've now clicked onto the project board. And what this is a step-by-step structured and organized approach to how to implement this particular use case. So it starts off with more of like a discovery phase. Maybe you're learning about the individual services that are used. Maybe you're doing some learning more about the use case. And then as you go on, it moves more into preparation and configurations. I'm actually going to go ahead and log on here. So to log on.
I was about to say that. You're not logged in, right?
Yeah.
So this was all without a login, free. You can just access it.
Exactly. But even after logging on, everything still remains free. So
meaning if I start on a Friday afternoon, I leave and come back Monday morning, I can just continue where I left off.
Exactly. So what you'll want to do is log on, and that also allows you to do some customization, which I'll also show you in just a second. But if we go back to the project board now, after having logged on, we can view the individual steps. So we saw earlier that this was already broken into individual phases for the implementation guidance, but we even go one step further where each individual step also has a guide. So it's really like a tutorial step-by-step approach on how to do the implementation. And if you get stuck along the way, right here on the right-hand side, we also have the handy conversation tab where you can reach out to the experts who created the mission, and they could support you along the way. You can mark the card as complete. So once you've completed that step, and it'll automatically move you into the next step.
And we have human experts, right?
We do. They are actual live. They're not chatbots. It is an actual live human. There's also the SAP community, of course, for support. Right here in the top corner, you can also add colleagues from your business. So let's say you want to work on a particular task together. They can do that for you as well. In the Resources tab, you'll find additional resources related to the use case. Support, here's where you would find threads, conversation threads based on those cards that you made. Customer stories, this is also proof points for you to show how other customers have leveraged this in the past and how they've also used it. Related missions, so this would be related either to the services that are used or related to the use case. And also new is the quick account setup. So to help you to automate some of the sub-account setup, the quick account setup is also automatically available in the mission project board as well for this use case. And
this was mentioned in the keynote today, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the last thing I just want to quickly show you is the customization. So now that I've logged on, you can see that I no longer see the 4 tiles at the top. They've kind of moved. They've rearranged themselves into smaller tiles for the catalogs, and I can now be taken directly into the content that's most relevant for me. You can customize this. So let's say you're not as interested in learning about your favorite missions, but maybe you saw reference architecture and you're like, I don't have time to look at that now, but I'd like to come back to it later. You can add that as my favorite my favorite architectures, and you can view that all at a later time. We also have a link here back to the BTP Guidance Framework to kind of tie it all together. And also at the very bottom of the homepage, logged in or logged out, you'd be able to find the BTP guidance under the related resources. So, yeah.
Very nice. So to summarize it, I mean, to go back to my picture at the beginning of the orchestra, this is more like an instrument you can start playing without being an expert, right?
Exactly.
So you can just go ahead. Okay. So now I ask a very funny question probably, because I always see this cat pillow here behind you.
Yeah.
So what do you think Casimir the cat says to this?
Excellent! I can't believe it's all for free.
Very good. So on this page, you can see the QR code, and the QR code directly gets you to the guidance framework, but also the link on the event platform does that. And with that, I would like to open it up for Q&A, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
So first question, till we see the first ones here. I presented the guidance framework and also the discovery several times already. And one of the questions I very often get is this all for free? So the Discovery Center and especially the learning content inside. You mentioned it already, but maybe you can also a little bit go deeper into the topics.
Yeah, for sure. So the Discovery Center is for free. So logged on or logged out. Really, the log on is just there, like I said, to personalize it and to customize it to kind of make it your own space. And also, if you're looking for which missions are available on trial, you can also find that under the Try for Free category on the homepage of missions. So also you can find other free content there. Yeah.
So do you need a license to use Draw.io, for example?
No. So Draw.io is completely free of charge. I downloaded it just several months ago, so try it out. It's definitely a really easy feature to use. I would find it to be very self-explanatory, so to speak.
And if I got it right, there are also other tools supported, right? Other diagramming tools, especially looking at enterprise architectures. I mean, it's usually not just one documentation tool or diagramming tool, but there are also other ones, right?
Yeah, so we have Draw.io. There's also Lucidchart, and then, of course, PowerPoint, the tried and true design tool.
I see a couple of questions, and I try to summarize them a little bit on the way to become a consultant or an architect for BTP. So what is actually included in the learning journey, or what is required to become an SAP architect? So this is really what I mentioned during the learning journey for solution architects. So we did not just put in, for example, solution learning on the integration suite, SAP Build or other tools, but we really included, for example, also some kind of conceptual approach into it. So we covered enterprise architecture topics. We also covered security topics in there, but we also put really a focus on the methodologies, because we believe if you want to become an architect, reusable tools like methodologies that you can apply to different challenges and situations are really the way to go. And this is more important than just having product knowledge. So for the certification, be prepared that it's not just only knowing BTP from every angle, but also apply different concepts to it. How to get Draw.io? It's probably because it's free. I guess it's just going to Draw.io.
Yeah, you can just Google Draw.io and it's available for download. So not too complicated.
Can you verify that the best practice guide is now called the SAP BTP Administrator's Guide? It is not a renaming, so it's really an evolvement. So we worked a lot on different content updates over the last month. We have basically 3 buckets. One is the best practice guide, one is the developer's guide, and then we found a white space, so to speak. So if you look at the guidance framework graphic, you will also notice that on the right upper corner, there's actually nothing right now, and we would like to fill this with content. So we want to follow the persona-based approach, really allow administrators to have an entry point as well. And this is why certain parts will move into this guide and certain other things will be rewritten, so to speak, to really match the persona. The main reason is because we really want to focus on the best practice aspect and make sure that the best practices are covered in a clean way and not mixed with other topics here.
Makes sense. Great. So I think that pretty much covers it. Thank you so much, Konstantin, for joining us. Thank you guys for joining us as well. Make sure you check out the guidance framework, the SAP Discovery Center, also the learning zones on the TechEd website, and have fun. Enjoy.
Thank you.